Welcome back. Now, a shocking new report released this week by Greenpeace Africa, as well as the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, has revealed a devastating truth. That truth is, air pollution in South Africa is claiming tens of thousands of lives every year. In 2023 alone, over 42,000 people, including more than 1,300 children under the age of 5, died as a result of exposure to fine particle pollution. That's also known as PM 2.5. Now, studies have shown that air pollution worsens chronic diseases such as lung and heart conditions, even strokes, diabetes, all of those being included. Let's unpack this a little bit more because this report is very, very significant. Cynthia Moyo, climate and energy campaigner at Greenpeace Africa, joining us. We also have Dr. Jamie Kelly, who is the team lead for health impact assessments at the Center for Research and Energy and Clean Air. To both of you, it's a good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsfeed PM here on Newzroom Africa. Cynthia Moyo, let me perhaps start with you. It feels as though this is something we've ignored for a very long time. I remember growing up, one of the big conversation talking points was the ozone layer has this big hole. It feels like that conversation has fallen away so much that even this is not something we consider anymore. Why is that?
Thank you so much for having us today. We have really trivialized the issue, of air pollution.
Yeah, please do continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I've got you loud and clear. Do continue, Cynthia.
Oh. Yes, I'm saying that, we've really trivialized the issue of air pollution. We've made it seem like it is not important because, when we look at air pollution, it is a very invisible, it is very invisible, but the deaths are massive. And a lot of times we've had people talking about, let's prioritize economics, but the truth is that we cannot build an economy on the backs of the sick and also on the backs of the dead, So the critics who really argue that South Africa must prioritize the economic growth over the environmental regulation are missing a critical truth, and that is that there is no economic growth without public health.
Yeah, silence and inaction are the words that certainly come to mind. Have we got policies that are basically making that a thing, Cynthia? Is that what's continuing to allow this to persist?
Yes, polluting companies continue to get away with it because profit is still being prioritized over people. And our report, the report from Greenpeace and CREA, makes it clear that Eskom alone, is responsible for 9 out of 10, of the worst SO2 pollution hotspots in the world. Yet, instead of forcing compliance, what are we doing? The government agencies continue to grant them extensions, delays, and also loopholes, even while we have children that are dying from breathing these fumes. So this is not really a technical issue, but it's a moral one. We have the data, we have the laws, and we also have the solutions. But what we lack is that political will, to put the health before polluter profits.
That political will is something I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later, Cynthia. But Dr. Kelly, let me unpack things with you then. The vulnerable. And under this, I'm seeing even kids under the age of 5, as Cynthia Moyo has just been speaking about them. They're uniquely vulnerable then to fine particle pollution. Let's just talk a little bit more about that, please, if you will.
Yeah. So children are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of air pollution. Their systems, such as their immune system, their cardiovascular system, are not fully developed yet. Their organs, such as their lungs, are also not developed. And that means that when they're exposed to a pollutant, they can't handle it, and it leads to huge impacts such as asthma and other bronchitis and other similar issues. And these don't just affect them in childhood, they can last throughout their whole lifetime. And in the report, we've showed one of the most devastating impacts on children, and that is premature death in children under the age of 5. Around 1,300 children every single year across the country.
Yeah, but how does one find that out? How does one know that? Because, as Cynthia has spoken about, it's invisible for the most part, right? So how would you know that is something that is impacting your lungs, in aspects like strokes, bronchitis, etc.?
So this data is based on many epidemiological studies conducted all around the world, different countries, different types of air pollution. And so we have this really strong body of evidence that links different pollutants with different health impacts. And all of these studies have been peer reviewed and established through decades of scientific research.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, at what COP are we on now? COP 2023 odd or something like that? And it just feels as though those dimensions of climate change and all those question marks aren't based then on things like air pollution. Doesn't feel as though we're focused on that. Do you think that the focus has shifted completely from things like air pollution?
I would say that oftentimes talks around climate change and fossil fuels focus on temperature and weather at different extremes, but the aspect of human health is equally interlinked. So if we can transition away from fossil fuels to clean renewable sources of energy, we can limit the amount of greenhouse gases and dangerous climate, whilst at the same time reducing air pollution and preventing this public health crisis. So it is a shame that these issues aren't talked about together because they're part of the same problem.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it is. Cynthia, we've struggled to even get government to just look at aspects of climate change. How do we get them to even think about how we deal with air pollution? I mean, the political will seems like a very far-fetched idea here.
Our biggest obstacle is really institutional denial. We're seeing political protection, we're seeing very regulatory weaknesses. For instance, when we try to hold major polluters like Eskom, we face these huge walls of resistance. Eskom has really been evasive about their commitments to lowering the carbon emissions outputs and have used the energy crisis in South Africa as a smokescreen to avoid being held accountable. And because the current energy crisis is urgent, they have conveniently kicked the just energy transition can, further down the road. So they are both internal and also external players that appear to have a vested interest in perpetuating the current fossil fuel dependency. So they keep incriminating information out of the public eye. And the other obvious player who stonewalls, any inquiries by climate and energy activists is the government itself. And they practice no consequence management when mismanagement and also non-compliance is uncovered. So there's a whole range of issues from political interference, legal loopholes and delays, and also this lack of transparency. So as you rightfully put it, we need that political will to be able to, to tackle the issues of air pollution. Visit Mpumalanga, you'll understand how, the communities there are in dire need of solutions. One parent during our press conference even told us that we've complained to the municipality about the smell and the smoke, and they told us to be grateful that we have electricity. So that's the level of disregard that they are dealing with in those fence-line communities. So in short, maybe I should say that the system is set up to shield these polluters instead of protecting people. Until that changes through legal action, through public pressure, and also political courage, we'll keep seeing profits being prioritized over lives.
You say that, and it just brings another entity to life here. And it reminds me of the VW scandal, of course, with their emissions scandal a while ago and their diesel emission scandal, and how that ultimately got them into some hot water and a difficult situation indeed. But the ramifications of that, Dr. Kelly, the long-term impact of those pollutants still can be felt years and years in, right? I mean, people may think that it's just a one-time thing. We're coughing, we'll clear it up, and that's that. But actually, that could last quite a while in your lungs.
Yeah, so the choices that corporations or governments make can mean that some of these sources of air pollution are around for decades to come. So those choices to use those illegal technology in VW cars means that those cars are in circulating for decades. And then on top of that, the exposures that are happening from these sources don't only affect the people right there and then, but it leads to lifelong consequences in some cases. So these decisions that we're making, or what the government and what the corporations are making about technology and policies that are implicating pollution, it has a lifelong impact, well, a lasting impact on society.
I mean, this is also impacting cognitive development. Am I right?
Yeah. So traditionally, researchers thought that air pollution really only affects the respiratory and the cardiovascular system, but more recent evidence is suggesting that actually air pollution affects the brain, and it can lead to dementia, Alzheimer's, and even autism as well in children. So there's really, wherever researchers look, they find negative impacts on air pollution in different parts of the body. No part of the body is safe from this.
So how do we get this right then, Cynthia? Where are we going to get this right? Because, as you said, corporations are focused on profits. You're looking at the likes of Eskom saying, well, the fact that we have this power crisis in the country means that we're going to have to do what we need to do in order to get the power. Government seems a little bit at odds on trying to get this right because of the pressures that they're facing. How do we take a stand on this and make sure that it's fulfilled amongst all the other pressures?
It is really easy. You know, we need to end the regulations, the regulation exemptions for polluters. If we go to our recommendations in the report that we released, we are calling, for the ending of regulatory exemptions for polluters, and just to align, the national air quality standards with the WHO, that's the World Health Organization guidelines. And, if we can also fast track the retiring of the high emission coal plants, and then we also enact a Clean Air Act, that would really, come in handy. And also, let's fast track the transition to renewable energies.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That conversation around renewable energies, I think, is one that is bound to continue for some time because there's so much debate around it. But should we not be making this data a little bit more available? Particularly, I mean, for example, the stats that I read out today are going to be shocking to quite a lot of people who've never heard that before. Surely we should be having that data out maybe more often, maybe widely spread, because that creates that awareness.
You are totally right. We need to create more awareness because if you go out to the communities, you'll understand that most of them don't understand what air pollution is. As we noted that this is quite a very invisible fight that we are fighting. But one thing for sure is that ordinary South Africans are not powerless. Our voice, their vote, and their visibility matters now more than ever. And like we always say, that clean air is not just a scientific issue. It's a human right. It's something that every South African can and must fight for. So the ordinary South Africans can play that vital role, by raising their voices and participating in campaigns and also holding both the government and these fossil fuel majors accountable.
How many lives could we ultimately save here, Dr. Kelly, if we were able to just implement this maybe even half as right over the next couple of years?
Yeah. So at the minute, the current levels of PM2.5 are leading to around 42,000 deaths every single year. And if the country were to align itself with the WHO standards, then we could be saving tens of thousands of lives. And to put this in an economic perspective, so currently the air pollution health impacts are leading to around 960 billion rand in health costs each year. Yeah. And if the World Health Organization is met, then we can save hundreds of billions of rand every single year.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I think one thing is for sure is that this is the kind of conversation that doesn't get had anymore. And it feels like something that perhaps needs to be brought out just a little bit, whether it be through yourself, Cynthia Moyo, or perhaps yourself, Dr. Jamie Kelly, in speaking to people a little bit more, the data, the awareness, whether it be through government, corporates, which needs to be tackled a little bit more. So we're hoping that this platform certainly helps in that regard. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That's Cynthia Moyo, who is a climate and energy campaigner then at Greenpeace Africa. Also Dr. Jamie Kelly, Health Assessment Lead at the Center for Research on Energy and